If you haven't noticed how popular SUVs have become, then where have you been? But while most of them all look and feel largely the same, there's a new one that throws the SUV rulebook out of the window. It's this, the new Peugeot 3008, and it moves the game on in a number of ways. But firstly, would you just look at it? I love the squared off styling at the back and these LED tail lights. The floating roof design, this little metal bit of trim looks really very nice. And overall, there's not one single flat surface on the car. I love the clamshell bonnet, the way this trim comes down and melds into the day running light. And I love the way the bumper juts into the headlamp. This is easily the most daring designed Peugeot for years. And it gets even better in here. I mean, have you ever seen anything like this? It looks just like a concept car. Now, I know what you're thinking. We've been here before with Peugeot, haven't we? It all looks very nice, but when you start prodding stuff, it all feels a bit cheap. But if you have that view, then you're going to be really surprised with the new 3008 because it actually is really well made. Every piece of plastic in here feels great. Even the plastics lower down here feel absolutely fine. It feels really warm and inviting in here thanks to the use of fabric on the dash and on the doors. I love the design details like the row of switches here, and on some models you can even have fragrance air that is pushed through the air vents and massaging seats with a mode called cat's paw. Very odd. But whilst the design in here is typically French and its exuberance, it's clear Peugeot has really thought about its interior. And it's also clear that Peugeot has looked at the Germans for those little touches, like the armrest that opens up like a Mercedes. And inside it's large enough for a 1.5 litre bottle of water. And the door bins are the flock lined on some models. This is the type of stuff you find on a VW Golf. And it means that when you put keys in there or large bottles of water, they don't rattle around. But the pièce de résistance is easily the Peugeot iCockpit. Now, essentially, it's Peugeot's version of Audi's virtual cockpit, and it works in tandem with this touchscreen and this 12.3-inch screen up here. Now, along with giving you access to your dials and your speed information, you have access to phone data, to navigation, and a whole variety of different information. It works really very well. And do you know what the best bit is? Unlike Audi, Peugeot fits us the 3008 on every single model as standard. The iCockpit is just the icing on an otherwise extensive standard kit list. Apple CarPlay, auto emergency braking, lane departure warning, auto lights and wipers, and an auto dimming rearview mirror all come as standard. This GT line car gets fragrances pumped through the air vents, wireless smartphone charging, LED lights and scrolling indicators, puddle lamps, blind spot warning, active lane keeping assist, sat nav and a parking camera. The 3008 is incredibly well equipped. In the back there's lots of nice touches, but before we move on to those, let me talk to you about two things that I really like. Firstly, the doors open nice and wide, and I love the way the door comes underneath the bottom of the car, so it means the sill never gets dirty, so you can have nice clean trousers. Let's hop in and close the door, and you'll see that there's lots of space back here. That seat is set up in my driving position. I'm just over 5'10", and I've got lots of knee room. And despite there being a panoramic sunroof, headroom is very good. Now, as standard, every single 3008 has a ski hatch, which is great for those winter holidays. A couple of cup holders there. A really good thing about the 3008 is that there's a completely flat floor, so it means that you can carry a third passenger and they won't be fighting for foot space. What's not quite so good, however, is the way the centre console digs into your knees. And this seat isn't particularly comfortable either, but for short journeys it's going to be absolutely fine, and you could fit 3 adults back here just. We've got ISOFIX points in each seat, and overall it's very spacious back here and families will not be disappointed. 3008 is blessed in the boot department because it has one of the largest in the class. Now let's open up the tailgate. Electric on this particular version. And once it's finally opened, you'll see the amount of space on offer is actually very good indeed. There's a nice square loading area. Under here there's a space saver spare wheel. In actual fact, this floor is movable, so you can put it into 2 different heights. And when you put it into its highest setting, it means that you've got a flat loading area with no lip to load suitcases in. There's also some really nice other touches, including the ability to fold the seats down with little handles. And when they do fold all the way down, you'll see that you've got a completely flat loading area, which is a really very nice touch indeed. And the last 3008 party trick is to be found in the front, which is this passenger seat folds down. So it means loading those really long items is an absolute doddle. Under the bonnet lies a 1.2 and 1.6 petrols, while for diesel there's a couple of 1.6s and 2 2-litre engines. Now, if you don't intend to do thousands of motorway miles a year, I'd recommend going for the 1.2 litre turbo petrol. However, if you do intend to pile on the motorway miles, then the 118 brake horsepower 1.6 diesel should be your choice. It's very punchy, it's easily one of the best engines of this size in the small SUV market, thanks to the amount of punch it's got and also the economy figures.
Peugeot claims around 65 mpg and we got near to 50 mpg. Virtually every model comes with the choice of a 6-speed manual or a 6-speed auto. There is a slight penalty in mpg and CO2 figures if you go for the auto, but the manual shouldn't be ignored as it's slick and precise.
It's a very enjoyable car to drive, is the 3008. Now, it's the first modern Peugeot with a small steering wheel that I've found comfortable to drive. Now, in the cars like the 208 and the 308, you set the steering wheel for what's comfortable for your arms, and then the dials are obscured, and then vice versa. But in this, I've got a very comfortable driving position, and I can still see the dials, which is fantastic. Elsewhere, there's great visibility out the front and out the back, and the steering is nice and light and accurate.
Peugeot doesn't offer the 3008 with 4-wheel drive, but some models come with something called grip control, which is essentially a sophisticated traction control system. It's not as good as proper 4-wheel drive, but it will get you out of most situations.
However, there are a few problems, and the first is to do with this small steering wheel. Now, whilst Peugeot has fixed the positioning issue, it's fine in cars like the Peugeot 208 and 308, small little hatchbacks, but in something like this with a big body, a small steering wheel is bad news because every light corrective action you do translates into a very big movement on the road. It can make for quite a darty driving experience. The ride in this car is just also a little bit firm. Now, whilst you could say that about this car's biggest rival, the Seat Ateca, the Seat is a little bit more enjoyable to drive. It has far more accurate steering, for instance. And lastly, it's the clutch in this car. It's quite high, so it means that when you come to a junction and start to pull away again, it can be a little bit jerky. Those are just niggles though, because the new Peugeot 3008 is a very desirable SUV and is proof positive that Peugeot is back to making great cars. Now, if you're in the market for a 3008, make sure you watch our review of the Seat Ateca by clicking at the top or at the bottom for our SUVs playlist. And don't forget to hit the logo to subscribe to our channel.